Welcome to the Radiantpreneur Rising Show with me, Jess Tomlinson. Interviews to inspire a new movement of leaders and entrepreneurs. The ones who lead with vulnerability and authenticity, stand in visibility, allowing themselves to truly be seen, are fierce and playful and sexy. Choose business as a spiritual practice. Seek collaboration versus competition. No, giving back is not an option. It's a necessity. They do it their way. They radiate. They rise. Now, let's rise together. All right. Welcome, everyone, to another Radiantpreneur Rising show episode. I'm Jess Tomlinson, and I am beyond tickled to have the conversation today with my newish friend and amazing. You're just going to hear all about her. I don't know how to describe her, but I was so drawn to Karen McMullen when we met at an upper level leadership event here in the Bay Area, and knew that we were supposed to be in each other's worlds, and she has graciously allowed me into her world, and I am learning so much because of all of the things that she really helps people with, which you're going to learn a little bit more about, and especially for me, geeking out on human design, which is one of the many tools in her toolbox. And so welcome, Karen. Thank you so much for having this conversation with me.
Oh, thank you so much for having me.
Yay. All right. The one question that I do love to start with is, because this show is really for entrepreneurs that are on more of like the spiritual path in leadership, right? And kind of some of the struggles that we might hit and being real about entrepreneurship. And so I'd love to know how you are leaning into some of your visibility edges right now in your own life and business.
Yeah, I heard you asking that question in some of the other interviews, so I was thinking about it, and I think a few things. One is just having recently kind of discovered myself as a yoga teacher, a dance leader, more of a physical person. So now leading those types of classes, I really love it, and I feel very at ease when I have small groups. And then sometimes when I get a bigger class, it can be challenging for me to stay really centered in my body, which is how I lead great classes, is because I'm continually feeling into my own body, and I know what to do next, and I know what to say because I'm really present. But the moment that I start thinking, oh my gosh, there's so many people, what are they going to think? I want to, show like a great class. That's when I'm not at all present. And then I, of course, lose the ability to lead appropriate to the situation. So it's kind of funny. And I feel like in a way the universe isn't giving me bigger classes yet because of that. So I'm still getting comfortable and letting myself shine in that new way.
Yeah. I love that. I feel like I was just talking to a few of my biz besties about this very same thing. One of them had gone to an intimate event and just felt so much more at ease. And she was actually a participant. And I thought to myself, it's so interesting because, and I don't know what this is about me, and I feel like I haven't really heard anybody else say this, but I'm more comfortable in big groups, like both leading and participating.
Interesting. Like how big?
Like, I mean, the biggest group I've spoken in front of was in a stadium. So it was like hundreds of people, multiple hundreds in New Zealand, which is like a whole story on its own because had just found out my second good friend from childhood had died like the day before. Yeah. So I guess maybe I don't really know exactly how I was feeling in that moment because I was just trying to like be there and process kind of the grief while still giving this talk that I prepared. But yeah, like larger groups to me, I think it's more energizing. So I just find it very interesting, what we feel like, yeah, energizes us or is a little bit more comfortable. I think I tend to feel like more pressure in small groups, like to be something, or, which is my own. It's part of the work I
Wow.
do, is like supporting women entrepreneurs to really just be who they are, all the weird, wacky, fierce, sexy, um, playful parts of them, and integrate that in their business. So I just wanted to bring that up because I found that's really interesting. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Well, I find it interesting that your sense is the opposite. I definitely feel more comfortable in smaller groups and more at ease. Yeah, and then the other visibility edge that I did want to mention is just I feel coming out about wanting to unearth my own unconscious bias around race and um, gender, and create more inclusive environments in my work, and not exactly knowing how to do that, and not even knowing exactly how to speak about it. And so feeling awkward, and also feeling a little uncomfortable with what I am doing currently. So feel that that is a growing edge, and also feeling uncomfortable to even just talk about it. Like there was recently an amazing summit called Honor, Don't Appropriate Yoga. I don't know if you saw it.
I did see that. Yes.
Yeah, I really loved it. And I just thought of all of my yoga teacher friends and people who own studios, and thought of like wanting to share it with them and kind of start to get people involved in this conversation. In the first post I put, no one liked it. No one even commented, nothing. I got 3 likes or something. And so then I put out another one, and I actually tagged people, and I said like, hey, like this is important. Like, let's look at this. And even that was not that well received, or not that recognized. And I was just thinking, oh, this is really kind of a shame, that all my white straight friends aren't making this more important.
Yeah. Wow. Thank you for sharing that, because I think so many of us, have these little whispers in our heart, like, I should be doing something. I'm in a leadership position. Like, I have a certain amount of influence, on people in our communities. We have that, whether we own that or not sometimes. And I just want to say that I think it's really brave of you to do a post again and tag people. I have a really hard time tagging people, even when I want to start a conversation. So I'm curious, and I bet for people that are watching this, many of them maybe are a little bit nervous to do that too. What would you say to them around like starting these type of conversations?
um I don't know. I don't think that I can offer any sort of advice about being visible on social media.
Yeah.
I don't tend to be that great at that. But I don't know. I guess in that case, I just really felt this urge within, and the urge within was stronger
Yeah.
than any outside pressure not to speak. And I think that's also a visibility edge for me, is just speaking up in general, and like letting people in my life know what I need in order to thrive and survive and be well, and just keeping people in the loop about my needs in general.
Yeah. Ooh, that's really good. And I would say that is a visibility piece, like even just that willingness to tag people and have, those kind of conversations on social media, like that in and of itself is a visibility piece. I've never actually thought of that, and I teach visibility. But it's probably because that's not really in my awareness as something that I'm even comfortable, doing. But I watch one of my clients in particular, me and my partner Ben film her women's retreats, and she's a writing coach, and she does these beautiful spiritual retreats to guide women to be able to write their stories and discover their story. And she's just so great at tagging everyone, like on every single post. And I'm just like, wow, that is just like really inspiring. And it might just be like different energies. Like, I don't know if I ever will feel comfortable like doing that, you know? So I really want to just honor and acknowledge you for the willingness to do that. And I believe it's a way of putting yourself out there and being visible. So even if people don't respond, right? Like, what I've noticed too is that some of what I feel like are my most powerful posts, where I'm bringing up really important topics, people aren't commenting, they're not liking. I just shared something extremely vulnerable the other day, and I was expecting it to like get this, huge response. And I was so nervous to look back. And then I was like, oh, there's not that many, comments and likes. But then I have to remember like the proof, and maybe you have stories like this, like the proof that what we say matters and that people are watching and reading and maybe just not engaging because they're a little bit nervous. And the proof for me is usually when I'm in person with people and someone will come up to me and say, this post really made an impact on me. And I'm like, oh, I didn't even know you looked at my posts.
Exactly.
Yeah. And I think that this all ties back like I want to tie the pieces together around like us just speaking up. And, you mentioned like speaking up and letting people know what you need. And I think that's a really great lesson for all people, but entrepreneurs especially, that can get, really sucked into the journey of like their life's work and kind of forgetting about themselves and really just, going.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So beautiful. I want to talk more about the speaking up, because I know so part of what you do, the work that you do, if you don't mind if we just dive into human design, because that's one of the things that you do. And we don't have to talk about the whole time, but you have a defined throat, correct?
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
great. So, for those people that aren't familiar with human design, do you just want to give like a brief overview? We don't have to go too much into it. I have a sense that most of my people know about human design, but just a brief overview. And then maybe we can talk a little bit about like our throats, because that's what's been making the biggest impact for me in the trainings that you have available, which we can also share with people.
Sure. Yeah. So human design is a system that was founded in the 80s, and it's based on your birth date and time and location, similar in a way to astrology, just based on, the location of the planets and stars and all that, and how that influenced you when you were born. And yet the chart is very different from a natal chart for astrology. And it basically, there's so much information in your chart, but what I really love about it, I just focus on 4 core things. And one of them is, what type are you? There's 4 different types. And 70% of the planet are one type, the generator. So Jessica is a generator. I'm a generator. Most people are generators, and for me, it was such a huge eye-opener to realize that I was a generator. Really changed and reoriented me and my whole business and how I was living and everything. So just even discovering what your human design type can be very powerful and very impactful. It can also be not very powerful or impactful at all if you're already completely living in alignment with it, which is sometimes happens. I meet people that are just like, oh yeah, that makes sense. And it's not like a big revelation for them. And then it also helps with decision making. So how do you stay true to yourself and know what is really a part of your path versus the conditioning? It actually maps out how you are conditioned by the outside world and by the people around you, so that you can be aware of, oh, I'm easily conditioned in this way, and I need to notice that so that I can stay true to myself. And then it has other cool information about what makes you unique. And that's what everyone loves to hear, about the little things about their personality and all that. But for me, I love the power of deconditioning, living from your body's truth, and, discovering more about who you're born to be. That's what I like about it.
Nice. Maybe before we start talking about this route, maybe I'd love to hear a little bit about what was so huge for you when you learned that you're a generator, and then how you started to apply that in your life and your business. Because it made
Yeah.
a big shift in your business too, right?
Oh yeah, huge.
Yeah.
So I learned that I was a generator, and I'm actually a manifesting generator, which is a subtype of generator. And basically, generators are here to honor what they have life force available to do. So their sacral center responds to certain things and says, yes, I have energy for this. I resonate with this. And it doesn't resonate with other things. And when it uses that precious life force for things that aren't right for it, the generator, then that person gets frustrated and they get depleted. And so they're really getting older, they're depleting themselves. And the opposite is true. When they use their life force for what they resonate with, they have almost this endless fountain of energy that regenerates every day.
Mm.
So when I learned about being a generator, and I just looked at my life, like I had created everything that I wanted. Everything. I could look around my apartment and I could see how I had visioned and like manifested every little piece of my life. The partner, the lifestyle, the money, the free time, the great clients, all that
Yeah.
shit that we're told we should want.
Yeah.
And then I was like, oh my God, I just want to drink wine and lie on the couch and watch Netflix. Like, I don't even have energy for anything. I'm totally drained. And I had no idea why. But then when I had my human design reading, I started to see, oh, I'm not using my life force well. Like, oh, I'm frustrated in these one-on-one enrollment conversations. Oh, I actually don't like delivering this course anymore. I don't want to send out emails to my mailing list. None of this inspires me anymore. It's lifeless. So anyway, I ended up dramatically changing my life based on just following my sacral truth and listening to how I felt, physically, following my design. And, I moved to Mexico. I stopped mailing my mailing list for about 2 years. I let go of all of the programs that I was delivering at the time. I just let basically my whole business as I had known it, I just let it all die. I delivered on my promises. So I fulfilled all my promises. And that was a big eye-opener to see that it took me years to untangle myself from all of the commitments that I had made. And I think of it almost that I had bound up all of my life force in all these agreements that actually weren't even in alignment with my truth.
Mm.
So no wonder I was so drained. And and then giving myself permission to pursue yoga and to pursue dance and to reformat all my work. All of that has arisen because of my basic feeling of, oh, I have aliveness for this, or oh, I don't have aliveness for this. So yeah, it's a big change because we're so conditioned to think about wanting to be successful. At least I wanted to be successful. My worth was tied up in creating the success that I thought that I wanted. And when I realized that my life isn't about being successful, it's about being satisfied, and it's about being
Mm.
happy with how I use my energy every day, that really changed the criteria of the game.
Yes. Oh my gosh, this is so good. Success is not defined by like this idea that we have out there. It's the satisfaction that you feel like it's like,
Yes.
right. And it can be so hard sometimes. I know I have my own story around like, we get the support that we need to build our businesses because we need that. Like we need community, we need support, we need mentors. And oftentimes we get so programmed in those like groups to be like, this is what equals success and for everyone. And we're not taught how to define what success means for us or what the kind of business that we want to be running. It's just like these plug and play systems. That's been a huge realization for me the past 2 years, is like every time I try to apply like a blueprint or like a system, it does not work for me.
Mm.
And that has been a huge like awakening for me, because I actually, when I first started coaching, I ended up with an amazing first mentor that never taught me any of that and just really helped me like make decisions for myself. And that's when I did my first Bali retreat and then my second. And like I created these things that just like, really felt good.
That's
Um,
awesome.
yeah. And I was like, I was successful, like, after my first business failure when I didn't have a mentor. When I got a mentor, then I created like 3 successful things in a row. And it wasn't using any quote unquote like strategies. It was just using tapping into me and what I wanted. Um, and then, so yeah, I'm sharing this because, I've been doing business for almost like 10 years now. And like somewhere in between in that middle section, I really got stuck in the like, I should be doing this and I should be using this like format for workshops and I should be doing, just all those things that we're kind of like, we're exposed to in this industry of entrepreneurship and transformation. And so I love what you're saying around, coming back to your own satisfaction. Um, and I'm curious, like, how, because I bet people are wondering, like, whoa, like, how did you even work through all of the like emotions to be able to make those big changes? And I know you moved to Mexico and you like sold all your stuff, right? Like, can you take us into that a little bit? Like, what that was like for you?
Yeah, actually, well, I remember having when I was lying on the couch watching Netflix back before I moved and all that, when I had just had my reading, I watched a horrible movie. I don't recommend anyone watch it, but I mean, it's a great movie, but it's horrible. Fight Club.
Mhm.
And the main character in that movie says this line, and it just stuck with me: what you own ends up owning you.
Mm.
And how I could not believe how much I was attached to the things that I had bought, the beautiful clothing that I had bought with the personal designer in LA, and the furniture that I just worked so hard to create all this beauty around me. And I did it because I wanted to feel good and I wanted to be happy. But then those things, letting them go, was so hard. And so I think there's just something really real about that, and how we can end up making decisions to stay in a certain place, or just because we have these things. So it was hard. It was hard. But I feel that I guess I just had a deeper knowing because of having discovered my human design and really feeling it. I mean, once you
Mm.
start to notice it, I mean, when I went on a vacation to Mexico, and I felt so alive and in this place, and it was like the little community embraced me, and I felt really at home in a way I hadn't felt before. And then when I went back to where I was living in Canada in the Rocky Mountains, it was as if I was living in black and white. It
Mm.
Even going to my yoga studio there, which was always, a home for me, I was just like, wow, there's nothing here for me anymore. This place is dead. So I think having that level of clarity and knowing inside of me made it easier, because I knew I was trusting something deeper. And so then the surface emotions and the letting go was just a part of the process.
Mm.
But I mean, I really, it was and I think this is what anyone that gets into human design on a deeper level is going to discover, that it leads to deconditioning. And what is deconditioning other than letting go of parts of yourself that you have adopted as a part of your identity that actually aren't true to your essence? And that letting go is often painful, because we have consumed that conditioning and we have ingested it, and it's actually become a part of us. And so then letting it go it feels like a loss.
Yeah. Yeah, what's coming up for me around that of like the deconditioning is that I feel like for most of my life before I really like went into entrepreneurship, I was living my design like as a generator. Like things were so easy for me because I was just responding. I was like, that
That's
feels
so
good. That
cool.
doesn't feel good. Yes, no. Like I was always 100%. And I'm still like this, but the pressures of business to like create and make something happen, like it was like the longer I've been in business, the more that I felt like that, which is weird, even though like I'm more comfortable in what I do. And like, I think it really just has been that like, pressure of like what success is supposed to look like. Right. But yeah, for most of my life, I never understood like why things felt so easy. But learning my human design, I was like, that's because I was really living from my sacral response center. I was paying attention to what felt good, what didn't feel good. And I was always in the moment 100% certain. Like, yeah. And, at least with the things that I was like doing in my career, I can say, like in my career and the big decisions. Now on the people pleasing front, that's a whole different story. That's a whole like, being the like person that can't say no and the friend that's doing everything for everybody else. I was not living true to my design in that. And I've come a long way as far as like noticing, what feels like what I have energy for and not. Yeah. Do you have any of the your own kind of conditioning stories around that front?
Wow. Well, I would say one of a deep conditioner is the undefined ego. A lot of people have this.
Yeah.
And you were saying something earlier that reminded me of it, because a lot of the best businessmen, or the most successful, the biggest, have defined egos, defined will centers. So they are the people that are here to like set goals and make deals, and like they're so comfortable in the material plane, and
Yeah.
the to and fro of exchanging value and understanding how to value what they do, and making offerings that the market will want, and catering to the market because that's their nature. It's a part of them. So then a business mentor with a defined ego comes to all of us, almost 70% of the planet that doesn't have a defined ego.
Right.
I don't think you do. I'm pretty sure.
I don't know.
I
Yeah.
don't. Yeah. So we're not really that egoic, we're more just sort of like, oh, I don't know how much this is worth, maybe it's not worth anything. maybe I should charge $1,000. Today I feel like, oh, I should charge so much for this. This is great. Another day I
Yeah.
wake up and I'm like, oh, this is worthless. Who am I delivering this? So it's inconsistent self-worth. And so I think I was really conditioned in business to oscillate between inflated self-worth
Yeah.
and, you know, going up on stage and, hey, I'm great and I'm impressive and this is what I can do for you and these are the results, and, you know, and egoic, like inflated ego is,
Mm-hmm.
and then also completely deflated.
Mm-hmm.
And and so I see that dynamic, especially in business. And now I still have those, like all of the undefined centers are where we're receiving the conditioning. So
Yeah.
I still have that voice that says, oh, like you're not good enough, or until very recently, it's actually gone away. But until very, very recently, every time I did a human design reading,
Mm-hmm.
the undefined ego voice would say, why are you doing a reading? You're not good enough. You shouldn't be doing this. You shouldn't be sharing this information. There's people that know way more. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and then I would just say, okay, I hear you. And I'm doing this. I'm just showing up because I have energy for this. This is something that
Mm-hmm.
came to me. It feels right. I like this person, and I'm going to show up and I'm going to share what I have to say. And that's it. I'm not trying to show I'm great, and I'm not trying to prove anything. So,
Yeah.
so I think that's been a big relief, actually, is just to let go of any proving or feeling like I need to kind of be impressive in any way.
Yeah. There's two things I want to talk about. I want to talk about the difference between the defined and the undefined, just to give people like
Oh, yeah.
a description on that. But first, I want to touch on this point around, I feel like what you just said points to something in the industry that we are, again, conditioned to do, especially when in business, is like serve the market and do what your clients want you to do. And like, for me, and I'm curious your perspective on this, and maybe this is more of a generator thing. What works best for me is doing what feels good, and then people resonate. Like if I'm really lit up about something, I am unstoppable. And like in that sense, and maybe this is my marketing background too, but in that sense, I feel like I can get anybody on board in the sense that, like, if they're right for what I'm offering. But when I try to go the opposite way, that so oftentimes we're taught in business of like, look for the pain points of people and like, are they really going to pay for that? And we get like really kind of, analytical marketing. It never works for me. So I think this is a really interesting point to illuminate, because I heard you say a little bit of that. Like, I'm showing up. This feels really exciting and good for me to do. Um, yeah, so I'm curious. And is there any relation in there with that, you know, open egoic center?
Well, I would like to just put a disclaimer
Sure.
that
Lots
I'm
of
not
disclaimers.
I'm not a person that really is a good I might not be good for you to listen to if you want to succeed in business financially. I mean, my path of deconditioning has really led me to a deep place of surrender and connection with God
Mhm,
in a very palpable way. Like,
mhm,
and so that's really my guiding light, and my guiding truth is just to move in the world from that place inside of myself of knowing, and to do those things that I'm tasked with. I feel like I get tasked with things from the universe, or consciousness, or whatever you want to call it. And I think almost everybody, if they're honest with themselves, knows exactly what they've been tasked with.
mhm,
And whether or not they're actually doing it is the question.
mhm,
And we're never tasked with more than we can handle. So, like the Human Design Free School website, which you've been watching the videos on, is a great
yeah.
example, because I was tasked with creating this really beautiful website that would be like a palace of giving. And it took me a year to follow that task and to actually do it. Like, I'm not that I started doing it right away. I'm just saying it took a year to fulfill the task.
Right. There's a lot of information there for everybody watching. If you go to humandesignfreeschool.com, Karen has amazing free videos, which is how I've been learning so much about human design. And you got this download, Karen, right? To like create it during
Yes.
the medicine ceremony, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So, so that, and, you know, I'm moving a lot of my offerings towards, generosity based. So I feel like I'm probably on the one spectrum of sort of disregarding the market, but on the other hand, I mean, I really do also respond to what is coming to me. So, for example, I've had in the last months and then years, I've had a lot of one-on-one clients that I help them create their unique body of work. So, you know, we started one-on-one coaching, and then out of that emerged their, you know, their new book or their new thing. And then I started getting all these people over and over and over that I just felt, oh my gosh, well, you really need this process to go through birthing your body of work. Like, I knew I could help them, but I just was sort of like, oh, well, aside from doing one-on-one coaching with them, I'm just going to keep my mouth shut, even though I know exactly what they need and I can really help them. Yeah. So then finally I just said, okay, I'm going to actually create something here. So when I had two naturopath doctors come to me in a row, actually, no, three naturopathic doctors came to me in a row that needed to create their own unique body of work, that I could see that they were really stuck in their modality of how they were delivering, and they weren't allowing themselves to really express their genius. So then I created an offering for them. So that's kind of like, that's responding to the market, right?
Yeah.
But it was also, it was a call because I received the entire program in a download in like 2 hours on a plane ride. I, you know, wrote all the sales copy right away. It flowed, you know.
Yeah. I think that's a good differentiator, you know, is really like, I feel similar in the fact that, you know, my last few years have been a lot of private work and just noticing, okay, what is coming up with the clients that are coming to me, that are drawn to me. And that's how I landed on actually my new focus, which is supporting women who've been in business for a while and are really stuck in, you know, feeling like they're only identifying with like these blueprints and systems, and they know that they want to come home to themselves, but they're a little bit scared to do that. Like, how do I do that, you know, when it feels safe over here? But it's that deeper value of self-expression, which is my highest value, is self-expression. And I know that, you know, speaking of like, we know what our calling is, that's my calling, is self-expression. And that looks different for everyone. And that's why like systems and blueprints oftentimes don't work for the people that really value, you know, connection to themselves as the highest value. Because there's a whole bunch of different, you know, ways. And each of us, not everybody is right to work with me or you. And I really love this conversation around paying attention, kind of noticing, you know, these common themes. I think the universe is like dropping them in, and the more that we listen and the more that we pay attention to our design too, and how we're responding.
Yeah, it's a combination of receiving the outer feedback and then also your inner truth and honoring both.
Yeah. Will you talk a little bit more about these, so the centers that we have, like as I understand them, and then you can kind of fill in. There's these different kind of energy centers in our body, right? And so in the human design chart, those centers are either defined or they're undefined. Um, and that means a certain thing. Can you kind of like take people through how many of those centers, you don't have to go into too much detail, but just like what that means for it to be defined or undefined and how many there are?
Sure, yeah. So yeah, just like you said, the defined centers are aspects of yourself that are completely fixed and reliable. They every day they're active in some way, and it really kind of forms who you are in the world. You and I both have a defined sacral center, which is what makes us generators. So we have that reliable connection to life force that we have available for certain things.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then the undefined centers are places where you're actually inconsistent, so it's not set. You can experience the range in that center of possibilities, and you can also, when you're around people that have that same center defined, you're going to be taking in and amplifying the energy from them. So the easiest way to explain this one is there are 9 centers. They each have their own themes and kind of like a different frequency or song that they relate to.
Mm-hmm.
And the easiest one to understand is the solar plexus, which 50% of the population has defined and 50% has undefined.
Mm-hmm.
And the solar plexus has to do with emotions.
Mm-hmm.
So half the planet are like me, and then the other half are like you. I'm pretty sure you have undefined, right?
Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
undefined. Yeah.
So the defined people like me, we're emos. You know, we're going through emotional ups and downs like a wave, 24 hours a day. Sometimes we're calm,
Mm-hmm.
which is our ideal state, is that we've processed our emotions and we just generally feel calm. So we'll be emanating a calm feeling. But
Mm-hmm.
sometimes we're really happy and our nervous system is buzzing and we're just filled with joy. And then, through that lens of joy, we see our life and we think, wow, everything's amazing. I've got the best partner. I have the greatest work. I love where I live. And then other times we go into our lows. Nothing changed on the outside world except that our mood went down.
Mm-hmm.
And then we look around and we think, oh my God, I hate where I live. My partner's a total dud and I don't like my work.
Yeah.
So we're going through these ups and downs all the time. And then the other half of the planet are more emotionally neutral
Yeah.
and content, generally, I find.
Yeah.
So left to themselves, they'd be more just seeing things as they are, like, oh, there's the tree, there's my job is my job.
Mm-hmm.
Unless you come into contact with me at a party and let's say I'm really heavy hearted and sad, you're going to take that in and amplify it.
Yeah.
So you'll be really empathetic and you'll even feel what I'm feeling stronger.
Yeah. It's so hard. This has been really helpful for me to learn, especially because one of my closest friends is emotionally defined and tends towards a lot of anxiety about things and like extreme, like emotions and like is always kind of processing. And I have a really hard time. Like her and I have had to have many talks and like she's felt really like upset. Like I don't really see her and I'm like I just can't handle it to a certain point, like there comes a
Yeah.
point where I'm like, and then I'll do something abrupt like, okay, I'm gonna go, like I'll draw my boundary because I just can't take it anymore. And so we've been like such great teachers for each other, and so many times I felt so bad, like what's wrong with me? I can hold like really deep space for people, but there's something about the emotionally defined, especially if they tend towards like really extreme kind of like ups and downs, which my friend does, where I feel like a bad person. Like I can't, I'm like, what is wrong with me? Like I've helped people through massive like transformations in Bali, and I don't know, like I've really been looking at that. Like, how do I take care of myself And yeah, this is like a big one, right? For all of us to know, I think, like if we're defined or we're undefined, and like how that shows up in the way that we are feeling.
Yeah, I love learning about this because I think it just gives such a good language that we can use with people in our lives. You know,
Yeah.
just like with my partner, he's undefined.
Mm.
And I'm very sensitive. So I really do go through these ups and downs of processing emotions. And that's
Yeah.
part of what the defined solar plexus is about. It's about processing. And that's
Yeah.
where the person with the definition gets their wisdom and their depth is
Mhm.
from going through these highs and lows and then learning stuff. Um,
Yeah.
but I say to him, like, just like when I swam with dolphins in Hawaii, the dolphins don't come swim with you when you're putting out like hateful vibes into the world. They only come next to
Mm.
you when you're like filled with joy and love. And,
Yeah.
and so I just think of my sweetie kind of like a dolphin where I'm like, hey, I totally get it if you don't want to swim near me right now, because you can just
Mm.
go swim somewhere else, because right now I'm in a really horrible mood. And I'm
Yeah.
designed to process that, but you're not designed to process that.
Yeah. Yeah, it's really interesting. My partner is also emotionally undefined, but I've noticed that that kind of has us playing sometimes this game of like, how are you feeling? How are you feeling? I don't know. Like it's like a like like a, wanting to like kind of like figure out how each other's feeling. And like I don't know if that's like part of that, but my sense is that it is. Um and so it's interesting, right? Like I love human design because I think it sheds so much light on relationships, which in everyday life is important. If you care about love, it's important. If you value community, it's important. And in business, it's important too. Like when we build relationships with, our communities and our clients and people. And so, yeah, I'm really grateful for you and creating like, this free platform for everyone, and like putting everything together in a way that's digestible, because I had already like been geeking out on human design, and then we met, and then you said you have this like whole free library resource, and I'm like, whoa. Yeah, so thank you for that. I'm excited for people to check out your website and learn more.
Yeah, I agree. I really love it for relationships and anyone that's working with clients. I mean, I have a lot of non-generator clients. I have a lot of projectors, manifestors, and even a reflector, more than generators. And I
Mm,
believe that's because I'm one person in the world that actually honors that they
mm,
are different, and that they can't do things the way that 70% of the planet does. So anyone working with clients, even if you just take a peek at their chart and you see, oh, this person's a projector, which is a very different type than a generator,
yeah,
and then you can honor them differently. You can kind of understand, oh, okay, this person can't just go out and initiate and make things happen. They really need to wait until they're invited. And I need to
yeah,
support them in that and not put pressure on them to be like uber productive.
yeah. Oh, so good. There's so much we could dive into. I'm like, we're almost like up on our time, and I do have a few more questions for you. But I was thinking that what we could do is share with people that we've been considering doing a class
Yeah.
together, and that that would entail diving in more to learn about your human design and to understand the different parts, and then a few action steps of how you can apply it to your life and business. And so if you are resonating and you feel like you want that from Karen and I think a great place to start would be letting us know, but we need enough like feedback um, to know that you guys would want something like this, because we're responders. So let us know, and then we'll respond to your energy. um,
Yeah.
the way that you can do that is reach out, to either of us. In the show notes, we'll have Karen's information. You can find me on Instagram at Radiantpreneur is my handle. Or, if you're watching this, you can also find Karen on your website, right? There's like a contact information on humandesignfreeschool.com. So just find us out in, the lands of email or website or social media, and let us know, because we'd love to know if you guys would be interested in this. Yeah. Anything you want to add to that, Karen?
No, I think you said it perfectly. Thank you.
You're welcome. Yeah, I would be really excited to do it for people, and to do it with you especially. So let us know, people. All right. Yeah, let's go into like a few last questions. I'm just feeling like I really want to wrap up by hearing a little bit more about just what you're lit up around lately. Like what are you feeling lit up around?
Well, one thing for me personally, I've always, not always, but for a long time, I've been a meditator. But recently, I've really been enjoying meditation in a whole new way of getting up early, around 6:30, and quiet out, lighting my candle, and then really just falling into connection with presence or consciousness, awareness, and how that just calms my nervous system. And then I've been able to move into the day just from this amazing place. So I think that's something as a yoga teacher, I always try to give to my students that experience of really quieting the mind and knowing that we're really not meant to think nearly as much as we do, that that when we're thinking so much, we don't have space to receive the divine thoughts that are here for us. And so, and I, with yoga, I try to leave my students with a feeling of their presence, so that they're also realizing that yoga isn't a physical practice, it's a spiritual practice. And I know that that's what I need, but I feel like it's something collectively that so many of us need, is just to really stop thinking so much.
Yes. I so resonate. I'm not a huge thinker.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah, I know. I'm so grateful. Meaning, so I am, because I'm an Aquarius. So I'm, the mind, air signs are mind, but I'm able to really turn it off pretty fast now. Back when I first started meditating, that was a long time ago. It was an interesting dance of learning how to do that. But what I wanted to reflect about you sharing that this is really coming up, and that you're feeling lit up about turning the mind off and just feeling and being present, is that how powerful that is in community too. What you're doing in your yoga classes, and just there's something I think that we're really moving more and more into, where people are craving to be with each other and to not just meditate at home by themselves, which is great if you want to, and that's what I do right now, but to do it in a group is so powerful.
Yeah, and then I find the task or whatever I'm being asked of, it just comes to me really clearly, and I know what I'm here to do. And so I'm actually starting to feel a miraculous change in my shoulders, which I've had always so much tension in my shoulders. And I thought, oh, well, I'm just never going to let that go, because I just tried so many things, but I'm not, and now I'm starting to see the changes in my shoulders of, wow, I actually am not afraid. So I feel like I'm being taken care of, and that I can relax.
Yeah.
This is a
Plugging,
miracle.
right? Oh my God, you're making me like, oh my, I'm like, I want that. Yes, thank you, Karen, for doing that, and whatever transmission you're putting out there that brings hope to all of us. Yeah. Oh, my body like has just, because I've had so much grief the past few years, has just, I've been really present to you how grateful I am for my body, but how mad I am at her for how much pain she feels now.
Mm-hmm.
Like, yeah, it's this interesting dichotomy of like, thank you for holding all that you've held, and I'm so mad at you for being in so much pain all the time, and I'm in that place that you were in of like feeling like, maybe I'm never going to get rid of this. So I love that you're sharing, because it brings me hope, and I'm sure it brings other women that are watching this just hope that when we connect to ourselves and we really like surrender and trust, is what I heard from you, even though I don't think you said that, but it's like surrender and trust that not only our souls feel better, but our bodies feel better too. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. Any last words that you'd love to share? That feels like a juicy note to end on, but I want you to have the last word.
Well, I appreciate the beauty of who you are and your intentions. And I feel like those intentions are radiant, right? Like good intentions. So having a good intention for others and having that be undistorted by other films of not as nice intentions is so beautiful. So yeah, I think that's your secret of being a radiantpreneur.
Thank you, Karen. I just adore you, and this is a really sweet, juicy interview. And I'm excited if we get to teach more together, which I have a sense is going to happen. So everyone, please let us know. Reach out and let us know if you'd like us to teach a class together, and we'd love to serve you and just gather that community that we keep talking about that is so important. And for all the other information on Karen, any of the things that we mentioned, we're going to put the links over at jessicatomlinson.com/show-12. This is episode 12. So you can find all of that over there to connect more deeply to Karen and her beautiful work. So, all right. Thank you so much.
Thank
See you guys in the
you.
next episode. Yeah. Bye.
Bye.